Hello, my name's Mark Scriven and this is Millie Beaver. We're the strength and conditioning instructors that look after the Worcester Wolves, and we've been asked to go through a few exercises for you today, some exercises that you could try at home. So before I go through the exercises, the way I would approach doing some physical activity while you're at home during the coronavirus is try and split your exercises up if you're not used to doing a lot of exercise, whereby you do your upper body exercise followed by a lower body exercise followed by a abdominal exercise. And this is called a peripheral heart action system of training, and it's basically buffers localized fatigue around the body. So it means essentially if you're doing an upper body exercise then move to a lower body, your upper body muscles are recovering while you're working different muscles in your body. So it's a safe way of going through an exercise routine. Obviously people who are more advanced and are training a lot will be following their own routines and will be more able to do different types of programs. Okay, the next group of exercises we're going to look at are your exercises for your upper body, and the first one Millie's going to demonstrate is a press up. So if she gets down in the press up position, so she's on her toes, her hands are just outside shoulder width, and her fingers, if you drew a line straight over across her fingers, her nose would drop down right on that line, so you know you've got your hands in the correct position. And she's got a nice straight body running from the ankle to the shoulder, so her bottom isn't in the air, or her hips aren't dropped with a dip in her lumbar spine. And then she's just going to do a press up and down. So in its basic format, that's a press up. But if you want to make it easier, Millie can drop her knees onto the floor. The feet are in the air now, and they almost act like a counterbalance. And as Millie goes up and down, all that she's done is she's taken the fulcrum point of the knee close to the shoulders, so she's made the exercise a little bit easier. So that's press ups off the knees. And then if I get the band as well, you can make this exercise a little bit harder with the use of one of these bands, where Millie's just going to put it round her shoulders. That's it. And relax. So you can make it a little bit harder with a resistance band. So the press ups are going to do your shoulders and they're going to do your chest muscles. But if you want to do the back of your arms, your triceps, at home you could do these using a chair, and we do a thing called a back dip, where Millie's feet are out in front and her hands are on the back of the chair, and she's lowering herself down towards the floor and then pushing back up, and this is working the back of her arms, her triceps. If you want to make it a little bit easier, just simply bring the feet closer to you, and it makes the exercise a lot easier. So those are two upper body exercises for you to have a go at. The first exercise we're going to look at is the basic lower body exercise, is a back squat. And the way Millie set herself up here is she's took quite a wide stance. And if you ever think about doing a back squat, the first thing that you've got to get really right is your relationship between yourself and the floor. And that is a combination of two things: the width of your stance, and what happens is if I was to drop a line perpendicularly down from the outside of Millie's shoulders, it would reach the inside of her heels. And then how far out she turns her feet. And so what we're looking for is anything from forward to slightly turned out, up to 10 degrees would be the maximal external rotation of the foot. So the minute you've got your feet in the correct position, we now need to think about going up and down into the squat itself. And if Millie gives us a few demonstrations, I can point some things out to you. What she's getting is she's getting a good depth onto the squat. This particular squat we'd call an athletic squat, and she's going down and her thighs are just breaking parallel with the floor. Her torso's erect, chest up, her head's in this neutral position with her eye line slightly up, and the hands are in front of her chest making her a little bit more stable. So that's just a basic body weight squat. But if you feel your heels coming up off the floor when you're going down because you've got flexibility issues, or you can't stop your torso from coming forward a lot, you can put something under your heels to wedge the gap between your heels and the floor if you feel that weight come forward. Another way of regressing this and making it a little bit easier is to do a thing called a sit to stand, what we call in the gym is a box squat. So Millie's going to sit down and literally just touch her bottom on the chair as she goes down. So if we were doing this exercise for, let's say, an elderly person, we'd call it a sit to stand, but we use this with the Worcester Wolves players as well, where we load them with quite heavy weights and we actually get them to sit on the bench and stand back up again. It's called a box squat because basically what you're doing is when you go down, that's the eccentric phase. When you come up, it's the concentric phase, and the bit when you're touching the box at the bottom is called the amortization phase. And there's a training technique of lengthening that phase of movement. But in essence, even if you were just sitting up at the desk at work, or when you go to eat at the table, every time you sit down, it's actually a box squat or a sit to stand. If you want to make it a little bit harder, simply load by being a little bit inventive at home and trying to pick something up a bit heavier, holding it close to your chest and stand up and down with it. Don't forget, your legs carry you around all day, and so if you want to look for some weights, probably a couple of tins of beans aren't going to be enough. You need something that's going to be a little bit heavier. You can use bands, and Millie's first of all going to go into a thing called an overhead squat, where she's taking the tension of the band up into the air above her head, squatting down through the same movement into this overhead squat, and the tension of the band is putting resistance through the muscles. She can also do a slightly different squat. We call it a wall squat. This is an isometric exercise. We use it a lot for people who are trying to strengthen their legs up when they go skiing. And again, Millie's got this thigh parallel to the floor, her back's pressed into the wall, and her thigh muscles are under tension now while she's holding that position. And you know, you could hold that anything from 20 seconds to a minute, and you'd really feel it in your thigh muscles. Another couple of exercises, or classical exercises I call them, for your lower leg, for your lower body, are your basic lunges. And so Millie's going to step forward into a lunge. And if you look, when she hits this front movement, she's got quite a vertical lower leg, but certainly her knee isn't protruding over her toe. Her torso's upright, head's neutral, eye line slightly up, and then she's stepping back to that start position. Steps forward with the other leg. As she steps forward, the leg that steps forward, you're working the thighs, the trailing leg, you're working the glutes. So if you want to keep the tension under the same muscles, you need to perform your repetitions on the same leg repeatedly. If you want to alternate the muscles that are working, you'd go from a right leg lunge to a left leg lunge. So it's harder to do all the lunges on your right leg first and then followed by your left leg effectively. What's the difference between a lunge and a split squat? Millie goes into a split squat position, and the answer to the question is the angle of this trailing thigh. This is now vertical, and this front lower leg is vertical. So you've got these two vertical lines coming all the way up. The other thing classically with a split squat is you stay in that position, don't replace the feet back, and you go up and down till you repeat all the repetitions on that one leg. So that's a split squat, and go to a lunge again, Millie, so we can see the difference between the two. And you'll see the angle of the trailing leg is different, and she's returning back to that start position again. And again, if you want to, we can make this exercise harder with the use of a band. So now Millie's going up and down into the split squat. Yeah, or she could essentially, if I could give her a weight to hold on to, if you take just with the band, Mill, and then do a lunge with the weight. And so she's just either loading the lunge or she's loaded the split squat with the band. But how do I make this a little bit easier if I'm struggling with that or my knees are hurting? Just get something to hold on to, a work surface in the kitchen or a chair, and you can do exactly the same exercises, but Millie's now got something, one, to stabilise, and two, to take a little bit of the body weight off through her arms, so she's not feeling as much tension through the legs. And finally, we're going to have a go at doing some core exercises, and it's probably best if you try and think about your core as different sections, and so your lower abdominals and the muscles which run from your hip flexors into your midsection here. The only way you're going to work those muscles is by actually moving your legs. So one of the best exercises we do are flutter kicks. But to do this, what we do is we use a thing called a kite grip, where you put your hands in this position and your thumbs just touch into the base of your spine, where your pelvis, essentially, your hips sit on that kite shape, and it just stabilises your pelvis a little bit. And then Millie's going to just flutter kick her feet from her hips. So obviously, the length of time that you do this, the longer you do it, the harder it becomes. What I would say with this one, it tends to be one of those exercises that puts quite a lot of tension into your lower back. So if you do feel your lower back tighten up on this exercise, just lower your legs back down and have a little bit of a rest. What will happen is your back muscles will get stronger because they're under tension all the time that those legs are moving, and it's probably not a bad thing. It just means that your back's a little bit weaker. So those are called flutter kicks. If Millie now bends her knees and puts her fingers on the side of her head and she does a basic crunch, all she's actually doing is slightly lifting her shoulders forward off the floor. She's keeping a constant gap between her chin and her chest. She's not pulling on her head with her hands. And where she's working here, she's working her upper abdominals. You can do, if you've got a history of back problems, or you find crunches difficult to do, you can do an exercise called a modified curl up or a modified sit-up test, where Millie's legs are out straight, one knee stays bent, and then all Millie's going to do from this position is roll her head forward and lift her head slightly off the floor. And what you'll feel, if you put your fingers here, you'll feel your this top layer of abdominal muscles working, but your spine is in this supported position, and it's a very safe exercise for people to do who have got a history of back injuries. A more advanced exercise is an alternate knee raise. So Millie's going to put her fingers on her head and she's going to sit up exactly the same time. She's going to bend one leg but all during the exercise, if you look what's happening, Millie's legs are on the floor. So one foot isn't coming off the floor and acting like a counterbalance. Basically, dragging the feet on the floor like that keeps the hip flexors pretty much out of the exercise. And then we've got the final exercises we do are what we call isometric exercises. So the exercises are the way that we strengthen the core for the muscle groups that provide stability to the body. So if Millie gets down in the plank position, so the basic plank position is this. We call this a high plank position, so it's very similar to the press up position. Nice straight line from the hip down to the shoulders. The butt isn't in the air, a nice straight back, the head's in this neutral position, and you can see her hands are run just outside shoulders. So if she goes down into a low plank position now, so this is more of the conventional plank that people use at home a lot, making sure that you're tightening everything up in the central area of your body while you're holding this position. Then an exercise we do a lot with the Wolves players in the gym is, can they move between that high plank and low plank position? So if Millie went into high plank, So go into high plank first, Millie. And then what you want to try and do is, let's say you're holding this for a minute, be in low plank for say 20 seconds, then move up to high plank and then go back down to low plank and do say 3 changes. But when you're changing between the high plank and low plank position, try not to see any movement. If you look when Millie's going down, that she's not moving very much at the hips. This central part is very stable. So even though it's still an isometric exercise, she's under contraction. If you feel your hips really kicking from left to right, you know you have to increase the strength of this area to allow the body to move between those 2 exercises without excessive movement at the hips.